I have it's a story, but I posted it on Facebook a few years ago, so I don't know how many people would have seen it. When I was in college, and I don't remember if I mentioned this to you or not, it was spring break, my junior year, and I had $50 in the bank, and my buddies invited me to drive down with them, and I said, I can't afford to chip in for gas. I can't afford to chip in for a hotel room. I'm stuck in Manhattan for spring break.
And this was Padre Island, correct?
That was the end. That's where anyway. So they left about 8 in the morning. A couple hours later, I couldn't stand it. I talked to another buddy at the frat. I said, can you take me out to I-70? It was about 38 degrees, half-inch of snow on the ground. And, you know, stick my thumb out. And they didn't have backpacks in those days. I had like a bag over my shoulder and my hair down, you know, over my shoulders, hitchhiking. And I made it to Salina and headed south. And I'm out with my thumb sticking out, and a highway patrolman pulls over. And he says, it's illegal to hitchhike on the interstate. Wrote me a ticket for $50.
But you only had $50 on you.
I had $50 on me, but that was all I owned in the world. But you know, it was when the court date came up. I had to pay the 50. So I got to keep the 50 I had. And you know, I went back to the top of the exit ramp. Nobody, you know, anyway, so I went back down the interstate, said, okay, screw the, you know, federales, and got picked up by somebody, got a ways down the road, and, you know, it was pretty cool, got a few different rides. So I am north of Fort Worth, about 15 miles or so, and this is a Friday night, it's probably 9 or 10 by then. These two young ladies pulled over and said, get in there. And they were on a beer run for a party they were at in North Fort Worth. And they said, you want to come and hang out? And I said, well, I'm not doing anything else.
No way.
And I went to the party with them for a couple hours. A bunch of people. It was a kegger. Well, and they'd picked up a couple cases of beer and other liquor. And it was only 5 miles off the interstate.
Dude, that's like stuff you see on TV, on movies.
I'll have to think about whether I would have wanted to have that videoed or not. Oh, so I go to this party, and it was a blast. And however, there was this attractive young lady that was flirting heavily with me. And I'm going, well, this is pretty cool. Then one of the other gals came over and said, this is the gal that's throwing the party, and that's her boyfriend over there, and we should probably take you back out to the interstate. And this is maybe midnight at this point. And north of Fort Worth, Texas. And they said, don't worry, we'll find you a ride. And I said, okay. So they get on, CBs were back then.
Yeah.
They started communicating with this trucker. Hey, baby doll, you need a ride? We've got a couple of women here, and why don't you pull over at this next truck stop, which this trucker did. Except I'm the one that gets out of the car saying,
oh, my Lord.
I'm your, passenger. And he's like, oh, Jesus Christ. And the girls drove off. I got in this guy's truck. He was not happy.
He was not happy.
He pulled over at the very next interstate pullover, truck stop.
Truck stop.
Get out. And these women had said, Dallas and Fort Worth now, there's some racial issues going on. So some black guys pull over and want to give you a ride. We strongly advise against that. Well, of course, it's 35 degrees. Yeah. I'm out there with my thumb out and freezing. I'm trying to debate. Do I go over this little bridge here and sleep in the ditch until the sun comes up, or what? And of course, an old beat-up car pulls over, and it's these two black guys. And I'm not going to turn down being in a warm car.
Yeah.
And, they're like, okay, hey, dude, where's this reef? You got to have some reef. And I said, if I had any reef, would I be hitchhiking? And the next exit, which was now about 15 miles south of Fort Worth, 1 a.m. or ish, and I'm back out in the cold, semis going by, blasting cold air, and I'm like, shit. And I'll never forget this. There was a small pickup truck that pulled over. It had a guy and a girl that were my age, and they said, "You like a ride?" And I said, "Oh, man." And they go, "Here, you want some of this?" They had a reefer going. "Oh, you want a beer?" And I'm like, hey, it's Friday night. What the hell?
It's what, 3 in the morning?
It's 1 to 2, but yeah. And, that's halfway to Padre.
Yeah.
And
Padre's at the clear bottom of Texas.
South Padre Island, correct.
Gulf, yeah.
So I'm 15 miles south of Fort Worth. And they said, well, I tell you, you've had a long, I told them what I had experienced. And they said, well, you can go, we've got a mattress in the back. They had a covered cab on their small pickup. And if you don't mind having a partner to share the cushion with. And I said, I'm good. And they pulled over. I climbed into the back of the pickup. There was a big, very friendly German shepherd back there. And he and I snuggled up. And I slept until the sun came up.
Seriously?
I got to sleep about 5 hours with this German shepherd on a cushion.
Kept you so warm.
Oh my God. It was a blessing for sure. So, they'd pulled over and said, hey, the sun's coming up. They had another reef going, offered me a beer. they took me as far as Corpus Christi, which is about 2 to 3 hours, I think, from South Padre. And they said, this is where we're going. And I said, oh, man, that is so cool. Thank you guys. You've been great. And I got out, and I'm in town of Corpus Christi. So, thumb out. 10 minutes later, a van pulls over, and it's this guy and a gal.
You can't write this stuff.
Oh, and I swear to God, this is the total truth. 10 minutes later, this guy and a gal in a van pull over. It's maybe 8 in the morning, 9 at that point, and they said, "You need a lift?" And I'm like, that sounds great. I just like to sit down. And they said, "Have you eaten anything for a while?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Why don't you come over and have lunch with us?" So we went to their house.
What?
It's like 11 in the morning at this point. I'd been on the road since, well, it'd been, since 11 the previous morning. And had bologna sandwiches. They fired up some reef. They said, "Hey, check this out." They opened up a closet in their house, and it was floor to ceiling kilos of pot.
What?
and I'm like, oh, this is so freaking cool. And I said, I need to get back on the road, though. And they took me back out. It's like an in-town 4-lane.
Yeah.
Okay. And they gave me some reef. And I put that in my sock. And then
No way.
I'm standing there, and another hitchhiking guy comes up next to me, says he's hitchhiking, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. 2 guys hitchhiking together. And not 10 minutes later, local police pulled over, lights flashing, sirens on. They grabbed this guy and stretched him out on the hood of their squad car. He was apparently wanted for something, and I'm standing there like, holy shit!
Yeah.
What? And the cop, and they put handcuffs on him, put him in the back seat.
What were you doing?
I was just standing there watching this.
No way.
And of course, I was worried about the quarter ounce of reef that the guys that are in my sock, that now the cops are going to check. They just said, they busted this guy and said, "See ya."
And they never said why.
And I was on my own again, and I stuck my thumb out.
Holy shit.
And so I'm back on the road. Somebody picks me up. And I had 1 or 2 rides. I don't remember the specific. Who cares at that point?
You're just glad to be alive.
Oh, God.
You're just glad to be, A, glad to be alive. B, glad to be not in jail.
No handcuffs.
Yeah, no handcuffs.
At least that time.
Oh yeah, right.
So I got a ride with, I don't remember the specifics of this, but it was somebody that was going to South Padre. So I got a ride from Corpus to South Padre. And they said, "Where are you going here?" And I said,
and Corpus to South Padre is like what, 1 hour?
Couple hours at most, yes. Better than walking. Yeah. And there wasn't any snow. And so I said, well, really, you'll drop me off wherever? I said, okay. My buddies are staying at, you know, XYZ Hotel, and they said, oh, that's right here. They dropped me off at the lobby of that hotel. My friends who had left Manhattan 2 or 3 hours before me were just checking in. And they turned around and saw me.
And said, what are you doing here?
How did you get here? And I said, I couldn't stand it. I got out in the snow on I-70 in Manhattan. And they go, but that's how long it took us to drive straight through. And I said, and I went to a party for a couple hours.
I got pulled over. I had something back. I something back with a dog.
Oh my God!
I fell asleep in the back of a truck with a.
But I still couldn't stay with them because I couldn't afford to chip in.
So what did you do?
Where'd you
go?
They said you're welcome to sleep in the back seat of their car. It's like an old, you know, '63 Pontiac.
But back then, back seats of anything were like a luxury hotel.
They come out, I was still crashed, and they come out and say, we're going to breakfast. And the car wouldn't start. And I'm like, you know, okay. They opened the hood. Somebody had stolen the battery out of their car that night. Well, I was sleeping in the back seat, and they're giving me a bunch of crap about some kind of watchdog you are.
Kurt, seriously?
I am not making any of this up. I swear to God.
Right now, you tell me the sky is made of meatballs, I would believe you. Oh, because this story is great.
It was
this story is fantastic.
It's an experience that not many people could duplicate, you know? And so...
My guy, you should write a movie.
That was...
Just about this trip. About this trip.
And remember, we're keeping this PG-13. I've got some other stories, but I'll save that for another time.
We're up here.
Right, we'll move along. So that was my first night in South Padre.
And that's one night.
And then went out partying that night, bar hopping.
Just one night. That's just the first night.
That was the first night when the guy's battery got stolen. I slept in the back seat. That was the first night.
So the spot from where you decided to hop in the car or hitchhike, or decided, in Manhattan, when you decided to hitchhike, from the point of the battery was what, 48 hours?
I would maybe, 2 days.
That's like the best
that's about
48
right.
hours ever.